Marilyn Mosby's fate is now in the hands of the jury, the tense closing arguments in her federal trial, and what to expect as jurors begin deliberations. State leaders asking for more money for a new program to tackle juvenile crime, while some argue it won't be worth the cost, as our team examines where your tax dollars are going.
Public officials should learn from history.
Maryland lawmakers taking action after an admitted teen rapist is allowed back in school.
If there is something that we can do, we want to pursue it.
Fox 45 News Project Baltimore investigates what lawmakers are doing to keep this from happening again. 3 teens arrested in connection with the shooting of another teen.
It got out of control a long time ago.
How a neighbor jumped into action after shots rang out.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Well, the fate of former Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby is now in the hands of her peers. Jury deliberations in her federal mortgage fraud trial are set to begin tomorrow. Mosby faces decades in prison if convicted. Thank you for joining us. I'm Carjacking.
And I'm Mary Bubala. Today's closing arguments follow a week of dramatic testimony from Mosby and her ex-husband, City Council President Nick Mosby.
Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost has been covering the trial from the beginning. She takes us through today's developments and what's at stake for Mosby this week.
Tensions are high as the federal mortgage fraud trial for Baltimore City's former top prosecutor, Marilyn Mosby, nears an end. Now that closing arguments have been completed for both sides, this case is now in the hands of the jury. For the first time in both federal trials, Marilyn Mosby flanked by her 2 daughters, both minors, so we're blurring their faces. Those 2 among a sea of supporters who showed up, some by school bus, to stand with and pray for Marilyn Mosby.
There's a lawyer in the courtroom. Today we're asking that you be the lawyer, the judge, and the jury. Father God bless her, and only you know how.
But inside, prosecutors and the defense making their final pitches to the jury. Several documents lie at the heart of the case. The mortgage applications, where Mosby did not disclose her outstanding tax debt and lien on her home in Baltimore. Included in the applications, this FBI notice warning the federal agency investigates mortgage fraud. Marilyn Mosby signing her name. Then this letter. Before buying the condo on the Gulf Coast, Mosby telling lenders she had been in Florida for the past 70 days. In reality, it was 37, according to FBI agents. Then the second home rider, indicating Marilyn Mosby would not rent out the property. But she had already signed a contract with a property management company to oversee rentals. And then the gift letter from Baltimore City Council President Nick Mosby, her then husband, indicating he would give Marilyn $5,000 to close on the Longboat Key condo. But prosecutors say Nick did not have the money, and the $5,000 actually came from Marilyn herself. The defense, including Marilyn and her now ex-husband, have maintained Marilyn did not know about the tax problems, rather claiming Nick hid everything from her. On the stand, Nick telling the jury he did not open the mail and did lie to Marilyn. And Marilyn says this statement Nick made during a 2020 news conference about the lien
have your tax issues been resolved?
Yes, thank you.
was proof she needed that the issue was resolved. But under oath on the stand, Nick admitted to lying to the public about it. Prosecutors saying Marilyn, quote, lied over and over and over again when she bought the properties in Florida, adding they believe she knew about the tax liabilities for years and purposefully did not seek proof from her then husband. Prosecutors telling the jury Mosby, quote, didn't bury her head in the sand. She got an excavator, dug a hole 40 feet deep, and she jumped inside. By contrast, Mosby's legal team appealing to the jury's emotions, telling them Nick and Marilyn had a relationship for more than 20 years, and Marilyn trusted her partner, even if she shouldn't have, adding, quote, the evidence is the reality of life, and the reality of life is messy and complicated, but complicated does not mean criminal. Prosecutors countering that by reminding the jury the IRS witness indicated the Mosbys were sent 40 notices of the tax debt.
There are literally hundreds of notices that get posted that get mailed.
Kurt Nachman, an attorney not affiliated with this case, says the jury could want to see some of those notices during deliberations.
The paper trail is long, the paper trail is extensive.
Which he says, based on the amount of evidence, could take a day or more. Prosecutors bringing up Marilyn's past in the very courtroom and her previous testimony in the trial, asking the jury, quote, "Do you trust the testimony of a woman who was convicted on 2 counts of perjury?" Meanwhile, Mosby staying tight-lipped.
Ms. Mosby, how do you feel now that this is in the jury's hands?
As she leaves the courthouse and her entourage remaining steadfast in their support. The jury is expected to resume deliberations on Tuesday at 9:30 in the morning. If found guilty, Marilyn Mosby could face up to 30 years in prison for each count. In Greenbelt, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
And Fox 45 News will keep a close eye on this trial in the coming days as we await a verdict. As a reminder, Mosby has already been convicted on 2 federal charges of perjury. She faces up to 5 years in prison on each charge. Mosby will be sentenced on those counts after the conclusion of this trial. For complete coverage on the legal troubles surrounding the former city state's attorney, head to foxbaltimore.com.
3 teens ages 16, 17, and 19 have been arrested in connection with the shooting of a 16-year-old last night in Rosedale, Baltimore County. All 3 are being charged as adults. County police say one of the teens told another to shoot the victim in the head while the victim was down. Detectives say our neighbor actually stepped in with their own gun to hold the teens until police arrived. Neighbors are reacting to the violence.
I'm gonna call the police. Are you gonna try to come out and help? Yeah. What you gonna do? Holler, scream, do something.
Tonight, our team of reporters digging deeper into the state's juvenile crime crisis. Fox 45's Keith Daniels pouring through the charging documents in that Rosedale shooting. He'll have the latest at 10:30.
And we begin with Jeff Abel and renewed concerns over one of the state-funded initiatives included in Governor Moore's juvenile crime plan. Jeff?
Well, this new state program is modeled after one right here in Baltimore, but it relies not only on financial incentives, but also it gives a free semester of college to those on the verge of violence can stay clean.
We need accountability for the kids that are repeatedly violating the law.
The same day the governor promised to hold kids accountable, the Juvenile Services Secretary promised to give them a chance to thrive.
Borrowing from the successful group violence reduction strategies employed around the country, including very successfully in West Baltimore.
The state is now pumping millions of dollars into the newly developed Thrive Academy, a program where teens with the most potential for violence are paired with life coaches who steer them down the road to reform. The state launched the program 4 months ago, and right now, 59 teens are taking part. And if they stay clean, there's a suitcase of rewards. Life coaches can offer financial incentives, stipends for work, even free college tuition for an entire semester. The program has some critics shaking their heads.
The life coaches they're talking about hiring actually need life coaches.
The program is modeled after Baltimore's group violence reduction strategy, which the city first launched in the Western District 2 years ago. That district ended last year with 41 homicides, making it the deadliest district in the city. But that didn't keep the governor from praising the program last month and launching a similar program for juveniles statewide. Today, a spokesman insisted that Thrive Academy was part of the governor's plan to build a more effective, less expensive, and better long-term approach toward improving public safety and bolstering opportunity for youth involved in the juvenile justice system. The governor wants to pump another $4.5 million into the program next year, a move that has some observers raising questions.
Don't double down on what's failed in the past. And I hope that the governor understands that, A, the state can't afford to be spending more money. And if they do, they need to do it in a way that there's going to be accountability, there's going to be transparency.
Because the program fails to provide intensive services for the state's most troubled teens, some critics predict it'll have little impact.
There's nothing to rehabilitate children. You have a lot of knee-jerk responses to angry communities, but the realism is you're going to still have these same children in the community committing the same crimes, and nothing is going to change.
That program is set to accommodate some 200 teens. It is now hiring life coaches to ensure it is well staffed. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. The investment in Project Thrive comes on the heels of a juvenile crime plan from state Democrats last week. That plan would increase probation and require police to document any youth taken into custody. It also outlines changes for the Department of Juvenile Services that includes a shorter deadline for intake decisions and more staff within the ankle monitoring unit. The plan received bipartisan support last week in Annapolis.
That these crimes seem to be consistently the issues again from police officers, from hearing from them. We're focusing on making sure that the system actually works to improve public safety and improve rehabilitation.
I was encouraged by the tone of the rhetoric that we heard today, and we also appreciate that they recognize the system is broken.
Well, Republican Senator Justin Reedy wishes Democrats introduce legislation that would repeal the Child Interrogation Protection Act. The current law requires an attorney to be present before juveniles can be questioned by police.
But there are concerns about a potential clash of ideas between Democrats and the Department of Juvenile Services when it comes to probation. DJS Secretary Vincent Schiraldi has long been an opponent of parole and probation, outlining his views in his latest book. He argues the human brain isn't fully developed until age 25, and young people shouldn't be introduced into the adult criminal justice system until that age. Governor Wes Moore has been a vocal supporter of the secretary for years, even writing the foreword to Schiraldi's book. But during the Democrats' crime plan announcement, the governor pledged support. Schiraldi was absent during that news conference, and political analyst John Deedy says it may be time for the secretary to make some tough decisions.
If they pass and Schiraldi can't get aboard with the program, a tap on the shoulder and he'll probably have to resign. And here's the other thing. The train has left the station in this regards. The Senate and House committees are both having public hearings this week, and both bills related to this. This is fast in Annapolis. So this is going to happen. And now Mr. Schiraldi is going to have to make some decisions about, what do I do from here based on what I believe in, what I think should be done, et cetera.
Fox 45 News has been investigating Secretary Schiraldi and the Department of Juvenile Services for months. You can find all of our reporting online at foxbaltimore.com.
Good evening, and how things have shaped up all weekend long up until today. So far, so good. We've got several more days of this kind of weather coming. A little chilly out there now, 37 degrees here in Baltimore, but we are going to be cooling down tonight, and get ready to see more of that tomorrow as well. As we move through tonight, dropping to 28 degrees, and then here's what's coming. We've got a temperature drop just for tomorrow, but 60s are on the way, and then we're going to be talking about a potentially stormy pattern to return. I've got the latest data in. Very big changes coming. We're going to show it to you coming up.
All right, Gerard, thank you. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock tonight, Fox 45 News talks with the mother of a murdered teenager, why she says the justice system failed her family. We're learning more about the drone that flew over M&T Bank Stadium. Who can forget that day, the day of the AFC Championship game last month? Where it came from and what the feds are now doing about it. And lawmakers are taking action after a Project Baltimore investigation found a juvenile responsible for rape was allowed inside of a Baltimore City school. How they're working to make sure this never happens again.
Project Baltimore is sponsored by the Snyder Law Group. Don't just sue them, Snyder them.
Lawmakers are taking action following a Project Baltimore investigation that found a 15-year-old rapist taking classes inside a Maryland public school.
As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, legislators have just over 2 months to pass a law to prevent it from happening again.
In 2024, there are not many political issues that unite Republicans and Democrats.
Tonight, the mother of a rape victim has come forward with a terrifying warning for parents.
But this recent Project Baltimore investigation is prompting outrage on both sides of the aisle.
I was sickened, I was angered, I was disgusted.
Delegate Nino Mangione is a Republican from Baltimore County. Democrat Bill Ferguson is the Senate president from Baltimore City.
As a parent, as any parent, immediately it was a sense of horror and hard to understand.
Two lawmakers with strong reactions when Project Baltimore first reported that a rapist was taking classes inside Patterson High School in Baltimore City. The student is 15 years old. In late December, he entered a plea to second-degree rape in Harford County. At the same time, FOX45 discovered he was facing an additional second-degree rape charge from an alleged 2022 incident in Baltimore County. Yet, in January, after winter break, he was back in a city school. And because he's a juvenile, the district could not legally alert other students or their parents.
I think this is probably the single most important thing I can be a part of in Annapolis. This is about protecting the children.
The day after FOX45 broke this story, Mangione requested a bill be drafted to prevent this type of situation from happening again. Maryland's Constitution guarantees a public education for all students. Currently, under Maryland law, a juvenile sex offender who is not on the sex offender registry cannot be removed from a school unless there is an imminent threat of serious harm to the health and safety of other students and staff. Mangione says if a student is already convicted of a serious crime, that should constitute an imminent threat. Mangione's proposed bill would create a list of juvenile offenses, including second-degree rape, that would bar a student from attending school in person. Instead, other educational options would be available, such as virtual learning or homeschooling.
This has certainly got my attention.
Senate President Ferguson could not comment on Mangione's proposed legislation. It's still being drafted, but he said he's conducting his own investigation to find out how a rapist could end up in a public school in the city that he represents.
If there's a 15-year-old that has a convicted second-degree rape, something's not going well, and there is a real serious major intervention that is necessary, because the last thing in the world that can happen is to see it happen again.
Ferguson, who is a former Baltimore City teacher, said he plans to gather details from city schools, the Department of Juvenile Services, and the courts to find out exactly what led to the student being allowed in Patterson High School, and if laws need to be changed to stop it from happening again. He plans to change them.
You know, it's something we really want to understand what's happening, and if there are places where the law has to be adjusted, then we have to do it. This is something that I can understand where people's, especially the family of the victim, it just is incomprehensible. And so we want to see if there is something that we can do. We want to pursue it.
The 2024 legislative session in Annapolis ends on April 10th. Lawmakers have 65 days.
And this is not a partisan bill. As a matter of fact, I think this is something that all Marylanders can come together and agree on.
Project Baltimore has reached out to every member of the Maryland General Assembly asking if they support legislation that would require parental notification when a juvenile who is found to have committed a sex offense or other violent crime is attending a Maryland public school. We also asked, should parents have been notified that a rapist was attending Patterson High School? We'll be following the responses from lawmakers and keep you updated. I'm Chris Papst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Last week, we asked viewers, should parents be told when a sex offender is attending a public school? 98% of those who responded said yes.
Project Baltimore wants to hear from you. Do you have a story to share about your child's education or a concern you'd like our team to investigate? Call the tip line on your screen or send an email to projectbaltimore@foxbaltimore.com. You can also find us on social media.
A budding debate in Baltimore County over the repurposing of abandoned shopping centers. Why residents say the county council is overlooking a serious concern.
New poll numbers are in, and they're concerning for the president. I'm Kayla Gaskins with that story straight ahead.
I'm tracking some weather tonight. I'm just coming back from looking at this data. It's really changing here every day. Take a look at this. This is what we're watching here. We have one system down to our south. That's going to be scooting away, bringing the colder air. Whoops, I skipped right past it again. Take a look at what we're going to be watching here. This system is going to continue to move right on by. And if I can get it to play. Here we go. Now you're actually going to see it. Another storm system is potentially going to be blowing up right over our area, and the latest data is showing even a potential for some light snow. We'll talk about whether or not this is really something that could be happening here as we move into the coming days or not, because it has been quite a roller coaster watching this. So we'll come back in just a bit with that.
Gerard, snow is not necessary. 62 degrees is necessary, sir. Thank you very much. But as we head to break before Gerard comes back, we're taking a live look at the Inner Harbor out there. Not a bad, excuse me, not a bad night out there tonight. It's cool. We'll be back in a moment. In England, Buckingham Palace confirms King Charles has been diagnosed with cancer. He will step back from his public duties while undergoing treatment. Now, a specific diagnosis hasn't been released. A royal source clarifies that it is not prostate cancer after the 75-year-old monarch underwent a procedure for an enlarged prostate last month. President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden offered their thoughts this afternoon, saying they hope the king experiences a swift and full recovery.
Hard to believe, but Election Day is exactly 9 months away, and new polling shows former President Trump is picking up support on the campaign trail. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins looks into the areas where President Biden is trying to recapture some of his base.
Former President Trump gaining ground.
Now at 5 points, this is the biggest lead NBC has ever had in 16 polls for Donald Trump.
9 months out from Election Day, and just 37% of voters approve of Biden, placing him in a weaker position than George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and even Donald Trump during their incumbent runs for a second term. Biden is also struggling with his base.
He's really got to be concerned about the fact that he is not polling well with the people who really delivered the presidency to him in 2020, specifically people of color and persons under 30 years old.
Trump and Biden are statistically tied among Hispanics, which alarms Democrats. It's been 20 years since a Republican presidential candidate has seen this level of support.
The data shows President Biden struggling on some key issues. When it comes to handling the economy, 55% prefer Donald Trump, just 33% prefer President Biden. Biden doing even worse when it comes to handling securing the border. That's where 57% prefer Donald Trump, just 22% trust Biden.
The bipartisan border security bill going through Congress could help boost voters' confidence in Biden on immigration, Belt points out, even if Senate Republicans block it.
He has the ability to say, look, I was going to work with the Republicans to give them exactly what they wanted, and they wouldn't work with me.
Belt predicts we'll also hear Biden talk a lot about abortion as he works to win back younger voters. The president has bigger hurdles. Only 23% believe he has the physical and mental health to do the job, a 15-point slip from 2020. But there is a wild card lurking in the wings. Data shows if Trump is convicted, he loses support. That scenario gives Biden a slight but important lead for the rematch. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
That brings us to our national question of the day. Who do you think would do a better job handling the economy, border crisis, and foreign policy? President Biden or former President Trump? So far, 96% of those who voted say Trump. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote and click on the Pulse tab to weigh in.
It's not fair to the family. It's not fair to her, like her life meant anything.
A Baltimore mother calls for justice after she says her daughter's suspected killer was acquitted of murder. Why she blames a former prosecutor for mishandling the case.
A neighbor steps in with their own gun to stop 3 teens accused in a Baltimore County shooting. The tense moments at a playground in Rosedale.
We are following three big stories at 10:30. A bipartisan border plan not resonating with some Senate Republicans, why they say it doesn't solve the real issues at the border, and how Democrats are pushing back.
A Baltimore mother says the justice system is broken after her daughter's alleged killer wasn't convicted, where she says city leaders went wrong.
And three Baltimore County teens arrested for shooting another teen on Sunday night, reigniting concerns over juvenile crime across the state. And we begin there. Charging documents revealing some dramatic details about what happened last night in Rosedale.
Fox 45's Keith Daniels joins us live. Keith, what are you learning?
Well, Kai, those details described here, including what one neighbor did when he heard the gunfire. Now, I talked to one man. He said he probably would have done the same thing. Another man told me, good for him, but no way. In the space where it happened, no sign Monday of the weekend violence. The playground empty, the pavilion dormant. A 16-year-old boy shot but survived. A bullet pierced him in the thigh. Tonight, we're learning more about what happened with details about the accused teen suspects, 16, 17, and 19 years old, 2 males, 1 female. The shooting happened at about 5:15 Sunday evening on Marquette Road near St. Regis Road in the Garden Village Park area in Rosedale. According to charging documents obtained by Fox 45 News, an argument between the victim and 19-year-old suspect, Alexis Valencia, with the other juvenile suspects, triggered the gun violence. After the victim was shot, according to charging documents, Valencia told the female suspect to shoot the boy in the head. She did not, but did, according to police, strike the victim in the head multiple times with a handgun. And we've learned a neighbor who heard the gunshot grabbed his firearm and ran to the scene of the shooting. According to charging documents, he arrived at the playground area, saw the female holding a gun near the victim, ordered her to put down the gun. She threw it in his direction.
I'm okay with that.
A neighbor responding to the neighbor's actions.
Holler, scream, do something. I'm gonna call the police. I'm gonna get on the phone. I ain't got no gun. I don't own no guns. I don't want no gun.
Meantime, another neighbor standing behind his door with his face hidden, but lifting his voice, speaking out about the gunfire that broke out across the street from his home. Another violent crime involving juveniles.
It got out of control a long time ago, like a very long time ago. It's just now it's getting the national coverage. I'm doing my part as best as I can. I mentor a couple people. I'm just trying to mentor a couple people, and I'm just trying to direct them the right way.
Well, the suspects ran off, then sped away in a vehicle. The neighbor with the gun, he was able to get the license plate number. That helped police track the suspects down at a home on Glen Arm Avenue, where they arrested the suspects, all of them tonight, charged as adults. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. Well, juvenile crime concerns have spanned across the state so far this year. Last month, 2 teens were hospitalized after a shooting in Essex. Police say the suspects are teenagers. Last week, Anne Arundel County police say they found more than 200 people fighting each other inside the lobby of an Embassy Suites in Linthicum. Police recovered 2 guns at the scene. A 15 and 16-year-old from Baltimore were arrested and charged. Baltimore police are searching for a group of teens who allegedly assaulted a 77-year-old man during an attempted carjacking Friday night in Bolton Hill. His wife telling Fox 45 News the group wasted no time attacking her husband.
Do you think if they would have just said, hey, give me your keys, that your husband would have complied and gave the keys?
Probably. But they ambushed them and, they kind of came out of the blue on them.
2 juveniles accused of attacking a Butchers Hill woman and trying to steal her car in November are now facing a list of charges, including attempted car theft, assault, and robbery. The victim says a DJS officer initially told her that the teens wouldn't face charges because of their age. Well, last week she confirmed those teens are now being charged. Public Defender Roya Hanna explains why some of the state's current juvenile crime laws don't apply in this situation.
As long as the top charge is a violent charge, then they can charge everything that is what is considered a lesser included count. So in a carjacking situation, A carjacking is a violent crime, but theft of the vehicle is not. So you can still charge it if the carjacking is charged as well.
Now, in this case, robbery is considered a violent charge. As for why these charges took 3 months to come in, well, Hannah believes it's likely due to DJS's slow intake process. Fox 45 News has reached out to DJS asking why there was a delay, but the department says confidentiality laws block them from discussing specific cases.
The mother of a murdered teen tells Fox 45 News the city failed her by improperly charging the teen's accused killer. Alexa Ashwell sat down with the grieving parent, shares her questions for the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office.
Janae Whedon was murdered back in 2021. At that time, Marilyn Mosby was the Baltimore City State's Attorney. Her office, this mother believes, incorrectly charged the man accused of murdering her daughter. Sitting next to 15-year-old Janae Whedon's picture, Mother Tabitha Gary recalls the moment a jury last week reached their verdict in her daughter's murder trial. 18-year-old Zachariah Allison not guilty of first and second-degree murder.
It was painful. It was hurtful.
But with that hurt, the mother says, was frustration.
I feel like he was incorrectly charged.
Janae Whedon was killed in Baltimore back in August 2021. According to charging documents, following an ongoing dispute between two groups, Zachariah Allison, who was 16 at the time, walked out of a home and, quote, began shooting indiscriminately. Janae, who was about a half block away, was hit by one of the bullets.
Went all the way up the block and hit my daughter in the back of the neck.
The 15-year-old, who was just days away from starting her sophomore year at Carver Votech High School, who thrived in cosmetology, was killed.
She just was a great kid, had a whole life ahead of her.
Fast forward to last week. Allison stood trial for the murder of Janae. A jury found the 18-year-old not guilty of charges related to her murder, but guilty of reckless endangerment, assault, and possession of a firearm by a minor. The mother questioning, given the facts of the case outlined during trial, why the city state's attorney's office charged the teen with first and second degree murder, but not manslaughter.
To me, it's an insult. It hurts me because he's able to come back out on this charge, on the streets, and never be tried for it again, despite all the evidence that led to him and all the evidence that was there that could, for manslaughter.
Back in 2021, Marilyn Mosby was the Baltimore City State's attorney. Still, we sent these questions to the office currently headed by Ivan Bates, asking, does the SAO feel Murder 1 and Murder 2 were the correct charges to file against Allison based on the facts of this case, specifically when proving intent? Why or why not? Why was Allison not also charged with manslaughter? And does the SAO believe justice has been served for Whedon? Gary believes the answer to that last question is no. The mother not only in search of justice, but to ensure this doesn't happen to another family.
It's not fair to the family. It's not fair to her, like her life meant anything.
A spokesperson with the office acknowledged our request. We're still waiting on those answers. Allison is scheduled to be sentenced in April. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Harford County Police are investigating a hit and run on the Hatem Bridge last night. According to police, a cyclist was riding on the westbound lanes of the bridge when he was struck by a truck's rearview mirror in the right lane. The 57-year-old man was taken to the hospital. Investigators are looking for a dark-colored Ford pickup truck. Anyone with information is asked to call Highway Police.
49-year-old Derek Lenn has been arrested following a deadly hit and run Sunday morning in West Baltimore. Police say he struck and killed a 42-year-old cyclist while she was crossing the street along North Avenue. Glenn was charged with negligent manslaughter, taken to central booking.
Controversy is building tonight in Baltimore County over a proposal to rezone certain abandoned areas to residential and commercial spaces. The county council is planning to talk about it next week, and it could be voting on it by the end of the month. Some council members say they're concerned the developer-friendly bill will lead to more developments like large apartments along the York Road corridor without addressing infrastructure needs. Other critics echo